Welcome! Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Conundrum Cast, where we talk about anything and everything, tackling the small topics and the big questions. My name is Imre, and I'm your host. It's a new episode. I didn't do last week's. I'm sorry. We're back on the normal schedule now. I was a bit out of it last week, so we're back. I have a new guest, Oliver Taylor. Say hello.
Kia ora.
So this episode is going to be about politics. I don't think it's going to be like super...
I'll try not make it boring, eh?
No, not about being boring. I just hope that people won't get offended. So if politics isn't your thing, maybe don't. You know. Hey.
Look, we'll keep it interesting, and I'm sure we will.
I'm sure this will work. Okay, so I always wanted to get into politics, but like, it's kind of like me wanting to go to North Korea. I want to do it, but I'm like extremely scared.
Yeah, sure. Look,
because there's so many different parts to it, and it's.
I think the key to that is not doing politics in North Korea. You know,
that's a good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, look, I think it's so important to do politics. Eh?
It is.
You know, like politics is basically what we're all formed around. You know, it dictates how we live, where we live. You know, what we can do, and I think it's so important that we start as young as possible. You know. Yeah. Have you enrolled, by the way?
I have enrolled.
You have enrolled?
I have.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, I have.
Good, because that's what the law says.
Exactly. No, it is important. Exactly. I think because I don't even know where to start this. I do think it's important for young people to get involved because it
100%.
It affects us.
Yeah.
And the things that happen now will have a long-lasting effect. I think you talk about this as well.
Yeah, I do. I think it's so important. You know, we see so many old people in politics, and it's great. You know, these people have their experiences, and a lot of people would say experience means that you've got a lot of knowledge about politics and in the area you are. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so important that young people get involved because if we make decisions, these decisions are going to affect us more than anyone else. We're going to live in the future. We are basically going to dictate what our future looks like. So old people, that's probably a bit wrong and derogatory, but hey, people who are more advanced, shall we say.
No, I know what you mean, but also it's like times are changing kind of thing.
100%.
So what might have worked back then might not be the right thing anymore.
Yeah.
And exactly, like there's new issues arising, and global warming's a thing. Why isn't everyone talking about, it's things like that. Why do people not, I don't know.
Listen to, and I think it's so important that we talk about sustainable development. You know, that's a key focus for me. I live on the coast, and if we have the coast just taken over by sea level rise, we won't be able to live there. So we need to be able to manage how we live on the coast so that we can stay in the areas we like. Mm-hmm. You know, because if we just don't do anything, we'll have what happened in Tiawonga a couple of years ago when it just took the road with it. It just swallowed up the road from the coast.
Well, they're on the Cape. There's the, what is it? It's
on the way to the motor camp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the motor camp's been almost gone as well now.
And that's hurting their business. I mean, maybe thinking about that as a long-term strategy for a business probably is a smart idea. But I think if we're going to keep those businesses and keep it there for our future, we need to focus on preparing that area for sea level rise, for climate change. So it's just clueless to me. Some people, and I've had comments, on the old thing saying, I don't believe in climate change, sea level rise isn't going to happen, but the truth is most people believe that it's going to affect us. You're going to die if you don't do something about it, and we need to think about this seriously. This isn't really up for debate,
Yeah, exactly. So I think this episode will be very interesting, and because you're a new guest, I want to have you kind of just talk about yourself first, especially if we're talking about politics. What got you interested in it? What kind of caught your attention? What drew you to this?
Sure. I was just so happy about politics because when I started geography, it's always about contemporary issues. What's happening now, how, and often that's based on the past and what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
And just talking with teachers about how these things affect us is really good. And it made me think critically, and it made me think, well, some people are saying this, some people are saying that. What's right,
Yeah.
What issues are we dealing with? For example, 1080 poison. This is something where people feel very strongly about. And for our topic in Year 12, we had to talk about how 1080 poison impacts businesses, how it decreases numbers of animals that are non-invasive species.
Yeah.
And how it protects our native animals. And it's so controversial because people think it just kills everything. You know, they think it's suffering, and maybe that's true. Maybe it does cause suffering. But for me, you know, I just think we need to think about the overall impact, you know, because 1080 poison, it does kill pests. It does prevent the spread of tuberculosis, and it does work. So there are all these different factors, and we need to be thinking critically about this. And it really got me thinking and more involved about politics. And I just, you know, I heard the local elections were coming up, and it was so important to me that I was in the public. You know, I work at the Foursquare, so in Clive, and I know so many people there, and it's so good to have that connection with people.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and also I just think we also didn't have someone from Clive, so Heretaunga, my area, is like a big sort of donut around Hastings, Flaxmere, and Havelock North, and it's a really diverse area. But currently both the councillors are on the coast, right there on the Cape Coast, in Homewana Tiawonga. But we don't have anyone from Clive. We don't have anyone a bit more rural. And I just thought maybe we could spread it around a bit.
Right, okay. Yeah, so for those who are listening,
I'm the Hastings District Council candidate for the Heretaunga Ward. There's 2 seats, and currently I'm up against one other lady. She's first term. She's really good. But it's really interesting.
Okay. So, so I did a bit of research yesterday as well. I went onto your Facebook page and read the...
I think I saw you like it.
Yeah. So, no, I did read the was on the Hawke's Bay app.
Hawke's Bay app, yeah.
On the Hawke's Bay app, it was an article done by yourself, correct?
It was an opinion piece. And Hawke's Bay app, I think, is one of those great new developing areas where you can talk about anything. You know, it's so new. They want as many people as possible on them. And I know one of the ladies who works there is from Clive, and I was like, wow, okay, maybe I could submit an opinion piece. And she was like, oh yeah, I'll post that. And like I delivered, it's so funny. I delivered this opinion piece to them, and then 20 minutes later they posted it. So I was like, crazy. That's amazing, that's really, you know?
Yeah, so in your opinion piece, you say sustainable solutions are the key to our future.
Yes.
Which,
sustainable development, yeah.
Yeah. So how would you go about this? Like, what's your kind of...
Well, we've got to understand climate change is sort of the big thing, but also about how it impacts people and cultural impacts. Like local iwi, like Ngāti Kahungunu, who have a lot of intrinsic values on land and water rights. So it's about all these individual little things, and it's not just protecting the environment from climate change. It's making sure that what we do now works for the future.
Right, okay.
So that rather than thinking, oh well, if we make a decision now, maybe it'll please some people, but will it actually work for the long term?
Right, okay.
So, for example, what is it? The Tiawonga seawall. So we talked about how that was failing because no one dealt with it, right? So they had been talking about the seawall for a very long time, and they were saying, look, it's approaching, the facts show that it's gonna start chipping away at the road, so let's put a seawall up before it does anything bad. And that seawall didn't go up until it took half the road away.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just making sure that we do the things now so that it doesn't cost us more in the future.
Right, okay.
So, those things, simple things like that.
What's it going to take for us to actually take action?
It's going to take a lot of work. And it's going to take people who are actually like us, who are young, who are going to live in that future.
Who actually want change. Realise that it's going to impact them more than it's going to take the people who are making the decisions right now.
Absolutely.
Right.
And in Heretaunga, in my ward, it's so important that we focus on, farmers and people working in agriculture who are, fruit growers and orchardists. These people use a lot of water, right? And that's important that we make sure that they have access to the right resources. But it's also important that we make sure that those resources don't run out.
Right.
And that we have enough water for everyone, and that it's not polluting our waterways. So it's so important that we have all these different little things that we do that make sure that we can support businesses who can continue to grow crops and grow the economy, but also understand that people have other rights and other expectations of the water.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what sustainability is.
Okay. And what do you think we as me and the general public, what could we do to kind of... So obviously we're doing like plastic bags and things. Well, stop using plastic bags and things now. So what else do you think that we could do? Kind of stuff?
I think it really does come down to just how you do certain things. I mean, We're pretty good, I think. I think we do have a big waste culture, and it starts from businesses as well, encouraging biodegradable things.
Yeah.
So, for example, paper bags. At the Force School, we sell paper bags for 20 cents. Some people won't pay 20 cents for a bag if they've bought $50 worth of groceries.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you want to make that change, you need to make that decision. We also do boxes, and we do those sorts of things. I think for people living every day, being sustainable is about remembering what you do now will impact the future. So things like recycling, we can do that. Currently, we don't have a great recycling system in Hastings. Or in New Zealand, to be fair, we don't actually recycle anything.
Yeah, no, I did notice that things have changed now. Now it's only like...
Yeah, it's only certain plastic bottles. You have to empty them out. It's plastic bottles labelled 1 and 2 on the bottom.
Yeah, it's only 1 and 2 now,
1 and 2.
Exactly,
you can't recycle the lids, and you have to squash them. I mean, that's actually not too hard to do, but the thing is, so many people won't do it. And also, there are so many things now that we can't even recycle at all. So, it's just... we really need to change it. And we support businesses who are going to start doing recycling here.
Yeah.
Or we, as a council, say, look, maybe we build a recycling facility, or we have other councils and other councillors signing on to maybe a big Hawke's Bay development.
Right. Okay.
That would possibly make recycling a more feasible option, because there's a lot of money in recycling, eh?
Yeah. Also, so in your opinion piece and the piece you did first announcing that you're running for
Hastings District
Council, you talk about, I guess, the methamphetamine problem in Hawke's Bay especially, and you were talking about treating it as a health problem,
absolutely,
and decriminalizing people who use them, which I kind of saw the similarities to what they were doing in Portugal, because in Portugal they've completely decriminalized all drugs, and it seemed to have worked. Like overdosing has dropped, even the use of actual drugs have dropped. And like if you're, I think if you're caught with more than 3 days worth, instead of being sent to prison or fined,
you go through a court. Yeah,
exactly. You go to court with a psychiatrist, a doctor. And it's a lot, you're treated as a human, not as just, as a criminal. And I do think we need to address this kind of issue. And I think it's really, really cool that you're actually talking about this, because people will always kind of tiptoe around these issues.
100%.
It's the same thing with depression and suicide rates around here. And I find it really, really cool that you actually like addressed it and you talk about it. And being a younger person, exactly, I don't know, I think our generation is not as afraid of just stating the raw facts.
Yeah.
Because, exactly, it's the same thing with climate change. It affects us, and we realize that it's okay to talk about it, and we do talk about it, and actually making people realize what the problem is, and saying that we need to deal with this is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with drugs, it's a big thing in Hawke's Bay, right?
Yep.
I think the thing I posted about in one of my sustainability statements was that we have, as the Eastern District, so what happened was the police conducted a nationwide sort of urine sample. Yeah. So they just tested all the wastewater of New Zealand, and they checked, how much meth is in it. Because you can do that. I don't know. It's not my thing. But they did it, and what they found was that Hawke's Bay, between Napier and Hastings, they found, I think it was 990 milligrams of pee per 1,000 litres of water. And now that's a lot. That's a lot, apparently. And I think, it just shows you how much use and how much harm that can do, because meth is not bad inherently. I know that it can, obviously people get addicted and that, but it's the addiction that's bad. It's the way that we treat it, the way that we criminalize people, not the right people. We should be criminalizing the people who are supplying people with pee, not the people who are using it.
Well, the people who are using other people for their addiction.
And obviously that thing I heard recently, I remember when we were at Camp Year 13 camp, the police guys came in and said, people are putting pee with cannabis, and that's getting people addicted so that they keep coming back, and that's not good. Cannabis is nowhere near as addictive as pee, and it just shows you how people are trying to manipulate things for their own worth. So if we put it into a regulated market where we've got safeguards in place, we've got as much support as we can for mental health issues, which is a reason people turn to drugs, or why drugs end up being a cause of mental health issues.
Yeah.
It really shows how bad it is, and it's about everything else. It's a whole process when it comes to drugs, and it's so important that we talk about this and that we actually deal with it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just kind of putting it to the side and saying, yes, it's an issue, but
we're not going to do anything now.
Exactly.
We'll come back to it later.
Exactly.
No.
Once it actually, once it takes half the road off.
Yeah. Once people are so depressed and are struggling financially, are struggling with mental health, that's when we'll sort it out. It's that whole sustainability thing. It's not going to work for the future because we've already screwed it up now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you'd also talk about mental health in general and depression in Hawke's Bay, which I did a paper about this in English. I think just depression in general in New Zealand, because it's interesting.
Yeah.
When I was in Germany on exchange, everyone's like, wow, you're from New Zealand. I've always wanted to go. Everyone wants to come to New Zealand because it's such a beautiful place. Oh. But then if you're here, everyone's like, no, I want to get out of here. And it's like, what is doing this to our... to our younger generations? Why are people so depressed about everything?
Yeah, I think this issue is really... it's also geography. I think we talked about this in geography at one point. But I think this issue is really important to understand where mental health is in the world.
Yeah.
So mental health issues, with depression and suicide ideation, which is thoughts of suicide, these issues pop up more frequently in more developed areas. So like the UK, the US and New Zealand and Australia have very high rates of mental health issues and depression. And the reason is, we don't really know why the reason is, but we know that less developed countries don't struggle with this as much as some of our more developed countries.
Okay.
So New Zealand has some of the highest youth suicide rates, and it's just so hard to understand why we're doing this. But really, it's down to how we deal with suicide and how people in wealthy areas just, they think that... I think it's probably more of a thought. It's more of an idea about, oh, well, you're rich, you're fine, you've got enough to live by, you don't need to worry about mental health, you're not depressed.
Yeah.
When really, all these things don't mean you're happy, Like, you hear about the lotto winners who, oh my God, I got so much money, but then they end up in a hole with nothing, and they are, they're struggling. Like a lot of people here in Hawke's Bay who are struggling as well with mental health issues, they aren't necessarily poor or in bad areas. It's just how it is with developed countries. It's really interesting.
That is interesting. Do you think it also, talking about geography, do you think it also has something to do with more rural areas?
I think it affects everyone in different ways, and rural areas is really interesting too, because obviously when you're in a rural area, you could become quite lonely.
Yeah,
because you're quite isolated, but isolated as well from mental health facilities. So I think getting access to mental health facilities is so important, and making it obvious to people, look, these services are here, you can go here if you have problems.
Yeah. And
rather than saying, oh, well, you have to find us, we should be able to find you as mental health facilities. They should be able to be there, and they're there when you need to see them.
Right.
So I think making access to mental health facilities is a real priority for me. I did suggest making on-site mental health facilities at GPs, because could you imagine someone who's struggling, if people do this, they go into the waiting room, right, at an ER, and they don't do anything, they just sit there waiting for care because they're deemed low risk, which is ridiculous. Because recently a guy went into a mental health facility, and he into an ER unit, and he waited there for 3 hours. Right, he was described as openly distressed. He was exhibiting really weird signs of mental health issues, and he didn't look very stable. Mm-hmm. And he sat there for 3 hours. He had no one to talk to. He wasn't talking to anyone, and then he ended up leaving and committing suicide. Yeah. Well, I think he committed suicide after he had murdered a woman on the street. Right. So, I'm not saying that that's good enough, but I am saying that
it could have been avoided.
It could have been avoided if we had better facilities, and that's not good enough.
I think it was interesting. Yeah, you were saying that about rural areas, how you get lonely.
Yeah.
I think I've talked about this on the podcast as well. Exactly,
yeah.
the feeling of being stuck, being in a small area. I think that's why I wanted to make this podcast in general, is to give people, an outlet, I guess, to talk about things. Because it's you're in a small area. There's not many people to talk to. All my friends live in Napier, right?
Yeah.
So it's really hard to go see your friends, especially. Because, I'm still getting around to getting my license.
Yeah, but and also, it's also public transport. We don't have a great public transport system.
But, it is interesting seeing how different things... Well, exactly, how different geographical locations can affect that. Because, there's depression here, but there's also in the big cities, like in Wellington and stuff. But that would probably come from a completely different...
Well, I think it's similar in a way that, look, people are isolated in rural areas physically, like there's actually no one there. But when it comes to, like, inner cities or, like, densely populated towns, often you can feel isolated because there's so many people around.
Exactly, it's that loss of identity, I guess, or standing out.
You get mixed in with everyone.
Yeah.
Look, if I walk down Hastings, I probably wave at 5 people because there's a few people around, but you know them, and there are people that are always there, but it's not too crowded that you get lost, and it's not so lonely that you can't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
But
you can walk through Wellington the whole day without seeing a single person that you've ever seen before.
Or have anyone acknowledge you, people are always rushing, a lot of people just darting around. It's just, it's different, and it's isolating in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
So I guess it is similar, but there are other reasons, that cause mental health issues. But I do think isolation is a key one where people feel trapped and lost and don't have support. Yeah.
You also bring up the point of a lack of LGBT plus representation. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So with LGBT plus, we're a very vulnerable group, and it's so important that we have representation on all levels of our legislative areas. Yeah. So I think with LGBT plus, it's more openly, engaging and supporting people, because there are probably people out there who are very open about this, or who are LGBT plus but maybe aren't open about this. Mm-hmm. So I think being open and being an outspoken voice for LGBT plus, from an inside perspective, as someone who is gay, it's so important to actually have that there so that people actually see that they have some sort of representation.
Yeah. Do you think that will also get more people interested in politics, for example?
Absolutely.
If they see that there is someone... Yeah, exactly. For example, there's you who's now making proper decisions. Do you think that'll get more people interested in actually addressing these topics?
Absolutely. I'm running in quite a rural area, so it's probably not the most enlightening area, because some of the inner city and town areas are probably a bit more open to that. But I think it's really good that for people to actually see, look, rather than just hating the system, becoming spiteful, we've actually got someone there. And it's so important that LGBT plus individuals see that and have that representation and feel like, they're part of something, because we haven't been a part of things for a very long time. Right. And on the national level, we've got quite a lot of representation, but when it comes to these local government areas, these are the areas that are still lagging behind in all areas. Women, men, old people. We've just got a lot of... it's quite old in a sort of establishment type. Yeah. So I think just changing that and making it more representative is really important, and it's so good to have someone there, I think, for me, or for everyone, but me being that person, I think, is a real privilege.
Yeah, I think, but it would also take a bit of guts,
I
think. No, definitely, because, the representation and people's outdated opinions can be very, very difficult, and especially in a rural area like this. Me, for example, with my fashion, I stand
Your fashion's
out as well.
Amazing. Look,
thank you.
You gotta take some, you gotta lose some, but
But no, exactly. Like, I will walk down the street and people will give me those odd looks.
But that's the best part about it.
No, it is the best part. Yeah. It is the best part. And that's why I find it interesting as well, because we were talking about walking through, for example, big cities not being noticed.
Yeah, that's actually...
Which is even funny. Like, here, I will stand out so much, and
Yeah.
I love it. But then in Wellington, for example, I can walk down the street wearing my wacky clothes. I end up fitting in more.
You probably would. Yeah, I can see that.
But so do you think there is still some sort of I don't actually know how to phrase this properly.
Probably like a negative sort of mindset, or
exactly.
just idea. I think, of course, people are going to be opinionated about these things, and certainly in Hawke's Bay, we're still quite old school. We're getting there. We're getting more progressive. But when it comes to just sort of being yourself and being more openly expressing who you are, it is people will comment, they will look. And I guess we've just sort of got to get through that. And I think if you've got confidence, you should go for it. But you are probably going to be a bit more noticed in this sort of area.
Yeah. But no, I really respect you standing up, like doing this, especially.
Thanks.
Also, like, you're 18 and you're doing.
Look, I think being young, empowered is just so good, and it's so important to just think about these things. You know, even if I don't get elected, it's just sort of like a mind check, you know, a status check. What would you say? It's sort of like an ego check, I guess, for people saying, oh, who can actually be elected into our government systems, and it just sort of makes you think, really, you know, have we just been electing these people forever? I guess it also puts that in the mind of people who we don't really, you know, talk too much. So some people who just don't vote, you know, 50% turnout's normal for a local election, and maybe that'll get people voting, you know?
Yeah, and it's also interesting, but it does prove a point that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can do if you set your mind to it.
100%.
So
Absolutely.
like whether you get elected or not, it can prove to people that things are possible. Especially, I think a lot of people young people aren't like that much into politics because it's like, oh, it's just old people, you know, it doesn't. Either it's that like it doesn't affect me, or just there isn't anyone to properly represent me. So having someone younger also making decisions, I think, is really it's good for everyone.
I think it's good for people to see it. You know, we hear a lot of politicians say, oh, we represent the youth, we're supporting young people, but to actually have that in there is something else, and it's really cool, I think, and that's why I want to get involved. You know, I think there's a lot of young families in Clive, for example, where I live, and I think 42% of households were families with children. So it's quite young, you know, it's quite a young area.
Yeah.
And it's important that we have that representation.
Talking about young people actually standing up for a cause, I want to talk a bit now about Ihumato. Yeah, and basically what's happening there. I think because there's this movement Soul, which is Save Our Unique Landscape.
Yeah. They're sort of an activist group.
They're an activist group. I think I was on their site yesterday watching a little video about it. How do you feel about what they're doing?
Now, this is a very complicated situation.
Yeah.
No one's really making it very clear, and some of the protesters probably don't really know what they're fighting for.
Exactly.
Because it's a lot of people that are supporting this, you know, because I guess it's so important that we support the minority of people who have less power. It's so important that we do that. But with Ihumatao, it's really confusing because you've got the iwi on one side, who you know, they have rights to that land. Originally, that land was theirs before they incited some sort of land war and said, you can't use the land. The Crown took it away from them in 1813 or something.
Yeah,
and the government took it away, and they gave it to some white family to farm for 150 years.
Yeah, to the Wallace family.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a little bit here. I don't know if I should read all of this out. I'd read some of it.
Oh, yeah, read some.
Okay. Well, so it's an area of farmland on the Mangere Peninsula.
Yep, that was right.
Believed to be one of the first places Māori settled in Auckland, and it was confiscated in 1863 by the Crown, sold to the Wallace family. And then it's in 2016 it was sold to
Fletcher Buildings.
Fletcher Buildings,
yeah.
So I think people, again, I don't know how I feel about it. First of all,
I think a lot of us, it's who it affects as well. You know, it's people will have opinions, but it's it can be quite confusing for some of us who don't really have much experience.
Yeah.
For me, it took me a while to get this one. I think with this one, the iwi have taken Fletcher to court and said, look, we have certain rights to this land. We want something, and we want it back. They failed in court to get all the land back, but they did negotiate a deal with Fletcher Buildings. They bought a share of the company, and they negotiated 25% of the land to retain, and also put limits on how tall they can build houses, so that it protects a certain amount of land that they can have some equity in.
There was also a thing though on the video I was watching on the actual Soul website.
Yeah.
First of all, like the iwi and like police started showing up at the location, and all the protesters kind of just hid on top of like where the old par was.
Yeah.
Which I feel... See, this is going to get controversial, because on one side, I find it really good that young people are making... like protesting and stuff.
Yeah.
I fully support that. I love going to protests myself. However, they were going about it quite childishly.
Yeah.
And some of the from the iwi who were there... who representing it, they were saying that most of these people don't even have any connection to the land. They're just there because why not?
Yeah.
They don't really know what they're protesting. But also, I don't...
Yeah, it's hard. I think when you mention young people have always been really activist. You know, we've always been out there protesting, fighting, doing that sort of thing. I mean, and we could also compare that to how young people don't really vote. So it's like, you know, what are you doing? But in this case, it's not just young people. I think it's a problem that's been happening for a very long time. It's an issue that people have been debating, you know, Wallace family, the iwi, and Soul. Soul aren't the iwi, so Soul are the group who they're trying to defend it because they think it has, you know, certain rights. Yeah. But they don't. Do they have that sort of weight? Do they have the mandate to argue about this?
But so some of the iwi were saying that this is private land now. It's been sold. You don't actually have any say in this, because some of them they didn't have connection to the land, so it's a lot of arguments.
The problem
about
I have
this
is, again, it all starts from colonialism. It starts from us saying, look, the white people, we took away your land and you can't use it. We'll give it to someone for farming. That needs to be acknowledged. Certainly, but I think with the iwi and Fletcher, they negotiated a really good deal where, you know, the iwi retained 25%, they put certain restrictions in, and they were happy with that. Look, I just think Soul, who are getting involved with this, they're creating a lot of noise when really deals have been negotiated. They have done things.
Well, exactly. They're being very childish about it. They're just being there for the sake of protesting, almost.
Yeah, I think Soul need to just take a back step and just look, what do people actually think about this issue? Because it's been on the table for a very long time. Now everyone's heard about it and getting involved with it. It's sort of, I think, a little disrespectful to the iwi, who have tried very hard, and
exactly. Now they're kind of just throwing that away.
Now they're just throwing that away, and I think it's sort of, Soul aren't really, you know, I'm not sure really if they're gonna create rifts within Māori. It's not going to be very constructive moving forward. You know, we've had colonialism, we've had iwi headland. Let's make a deal where we can share things and we can grow our country without having to pander to any one group or the other, because this is a shared area, you know.
But okay, well, anyway, that area was taken by Governor Gray, who was one of the big instigators in the whole like land wars in that area. Anyway, so like this whole issue has been a very, very long-running issue in New Zealand history, especially. So like I do see why people are upset about this, but it does have to be addressed in a certain manner, I think. And again, I both support Soul because they're wanting to make a difference, and they're
not coming from a bad place.
Exactly.
They're trying to do what they think is right,
but
and that's nice.
They're also, I think, actually in an interview with Panya Newton, who is one of the... She's like one of the main activists now.
Is she for Soul?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
her
think I
and
heard
her
about
cousins created Soul, and she's one of the main activists now at this area. She was also saying she never saw herself as a leader, but also she didn't expect this to get this big.
Yeah,
I think.
Sure. I don't know. I think again, it's a really complicated issue, and right now they're entering into negotiations with the government, with the council, with iwi, and all the other interest groups in Fletcher. So I think we're going to have to just wait and see what happens. But I do think they're coming from the right place. But I think
They're not quite going about
they're not
the
quite
proper.
No,
Yeah.
and if they really cared about this land, they should have been in negotiations with iwi, with Fletcher, like because the iwi and Fletcher, they've done their negotiations.
Yeah.
But Sol haven't been there. They've just sort of been, oh no, don't touch our land. Which, I mean, again, that's quite a well-founded argument.
Yeah.
But they could be there at the negotiating table doing stuff.
It almost looks like it's just a stubborn kid having a tantrum on the floor because...
Yeah, and that's not how we do things. And I think some of the political parties who are going there, and I personally support quite a lot, are just, doing the activist thing and aren't actually doing the responsible thing, which is nutting out deals, doing the work, actually finding a solution rather than just fighting,
tiptoeing,
fighting, protesting, sleeping in cabins and getting gunned down by police. Well, not gunned down, but being
I see what you mean. Yeah, and I think people were also quite there's also mixed emotions about it with what Jacinda Ardern's been doing about it.
Yeah.
I was watching some things online about it as well, and there's quite mixed emotions about that. Do you have any specific thoughts on that?
Look, I think Jacinda she's busy right now.
Yeah.
She's over, I forget where she is. She's on one of the islands, I think, and she's doing some trade negotiations. But I think she did say, look, we're going to put a stop to this, and no building will continue until we negotiate, which is the responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
I did read somewhere someone wanted to say, look, put the Māori ministers in charge because, they're Māori. This is something that's close to home for them, which is, fair enough. But, I think they're doing pretty well. Is there anything else Jacinda did? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Some people, she did talk about it a lot on the news and stuff as well. And I think there's just... some people are just like, yeah, she shouldn't be getting involved with this because it's something that's just outside of her.
Well, they say it's out of the government's control. A lot of the ministers have said that. I think she's done the responsible thing and look, taken a back step. Regardless of what's happening here, we're just going to say, look, we won't do anything. Yeah. We'll just talk about it. We'll start doing some more negotiations. And we'll see what comes of it. Which I think
that is the right thing.
That's a responsible thing to do. And I mean, regardless of how you feel on her or anyone else's involvement, she's trying to be as neutral or as workful, and she's trying to do as much as she can to make people happy. And I think that's good, but it involves a lot of different groups. So it also involves council, and Auckland Council are now saying, oh, we didn't, sorry, we regret this was bad. But I think that's them taking a little bit of a weak approach to that. Yeah. Because you need to say, look, the negotiations were there, grants were given, people were allowed to build, and iwi were happy. This individual sort of rogue activist group are just that, so it just how you approach it from now on is going to be interesting.
Well, I think that's always the case though with these kind of rogue groups, but
I just think it's not constructive because there's so many other Māori issues that we could be talking about. Yeah,
but there's also just a right way and a wrong way to go about it. Yeah. Because if you're ready to, first of all, just sit there and protest this, then you have to take everything into consideration. You can't just be like, you know what, we're just gonna sit here so they stop, like a little kid. This is an adult issue, and you have to take the right precautions and think about what you're doing, because I don't really know where I was going with this. I was trying to make a point.
You are right.
But...
You know, just we need to be a bit more mature, and it's such an important issue because I mean they have been saying, look, this is really important.
Yeah.
Because of the first landings on what did they say? What was it?
It was one of the first places that Māori settled in the Auckland area.
Yeah.
Which there is a lot of significance to that. I think the point I was trying to make is one of the reasons we don't have that many young people involved, or I don't know, we don't have many young people representing in the council and thing is because people think they're kids, they're not thinking straight.
Yeah.
And something like Soul is just a perfect representation of people not thinking about it in an adult way.
Yeah,
it is.
I agree.
And I think that's why it's really important, especially for someone like you now, to take control and show that actually we can make adult decisions and actually make a proper impact and prove that it's not just old people that can be making these big decisions.
Yeah. Old people, obviously, in quotes, eh?
Yeah.
I think, again, you know, it comes down to that idea that a lot of people have, maybe the older people, think that it's, you know, young people, we're trying to focus them onto activism and not actually voting or doing, you know, actual legislative work. I think we're transitioning out of that now. We've got a lot of young people running. I'm actually part of a Facebook group of young council candidates. And it was in the news too. It was really cool. But it's really important that we actually not just do the activism, but we also put the work in.
To prove that we can make a difference.
We can do something.
Exactly. You can't just say you can't just say that we're going to make a difference, but then not. I think, but that's also why I think that's one of the problems with our generation as well. People always want things, but they're not ready to work for it. So it's important to actually put the work in if you want to have something out of it. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything specific, but if there is something that you still want to address, or if there's a statement you want to make.
Well, I just want to put it to everyone that, look, we need to be understanding that we can get the work done. We can go into council and we can make big decisions, and it's so important we have representation for all our people. We have representation for young people, old people, women, men, LGBT+, you know, non-LGBT+. We have all the groups represented in our council, and I think it's so important that we have that sort of idea, but also not just the representation, but also the proper perspectives that represent the people and what we want as groups. Yeah.
Okay. It's been really cool having you on, especially.
Oh, thanks.
I will let you now plug yourself. So you, first of all, do you want to?
So if people want to follow me, I'm on Facebook, Oliver Taylor for Council, at Oliver Taylor for Council, or Oliver Taylor for Hiratonga. They'll both come up on Facebook.
I'll put it all in the description as well.
Yeah. So if you want to follow me there, I'll see you there.
And so who's actually voting to?
Yeah. So in my area, if you live in Tiawonga, Hamoana, Clifton, Clive, Fernhill, Bridgepa, all these different satellite towns and all the rural areas around Hastings, Flaxmere and Havelock North, but not so rural because there are other wards. You can vote if you can, but also it's so important wherever you are that you vote for people that represent your interests, who are all about policy, well, mostly about policy, so that we can have actual work done rather than just fluffy ideas. It's so important that we get out and vote and actually, you know, represent ourselves rather than just say we are.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I would love to have you on again as well.
Thanks.
At a later time, we can just see where things have turned out. And yeah, another episode done. How yeah.